Good morning, everybody. This is going to be a nice, short reading of Zarathustra. We're going to be reading The Leech. This is your friend and fellow dense thinker, Benjamin. We are sadly without part 2. My second half, Ryan, he is being an Ubermensch, one could say. So, I'm going to begin the reading here. And Zarathustra walked thoughtfully farther and deeper through forests and past swampy places. But, as happens with those who think on difficult things, on his way he unintentionally trod on a man. And behold, all at once a cry of pain, and 2 curses and 20 little invectives spurted up into his face, so that in his fright he raised his stick and brought it down on the man he had trodden on. But he immediately came to his senses, and his heart laughed at the folly he had just committed. "Forgive me," he said to the man he had trodden on, who had angrily risen and sat down again. "Forgive me, and first of all accept a parable. How a wanderer dreaming of distant things unintentionally stumbles over a dog on a lonely road, a dog lying in the sun. How they both start up and let fly at one another, like mortal enemies, these two, frightened to death. Thus it happened with us. And yet, how little was lacking for them to caress one another, this dog and this solitary. For they are both solitaries. Whoever you may be," said the trodden-on man, still angry, "you have come too near me with your parable, and not only with your foot. For look, am I a dog?" And hereupon the sitting man arose and drew his naked arm from the swamp. For previously he had lain stretched out on the ground, concealed and unrecognizable, like someone lying in wait for swamp game. "But what are you doing?" cried Zarathustra in alarm, for he saw that a great deal of blood was running down the naked arm. "What has happened to you? Has an evil beast bitten you, unhappy man?" The bleeding man laughed, still irritated. "What is it to do with you?" he said, and made to go off. "Here I am at home in my domain. Whoever wants to question me, let him. But I shall hardly reply to a blockhead." "You are wrong," said Zarathustra compassionately, and held him fast. "You are wrong. Here you are not in your own home, but in my kingdom, and I will have no one come to harm here. But none the less, call me what you like. I am what I must be. I call myself Zarathustra." "Very well. Up yonder leads the way to Zarathustra's cave. It is not far. Will you not tend your wounds in my home? Things have gone ill with you in your life, you unhappy man. First a beast bite you, and then a man trod on you." But when the trodden-on man heard the name of Zarathustra, he changed. "What has happened to me?" he cried. "Who concerns me in this life except this one man, Zarathustra, and that one beast that lives on blood, the leech? For the sake of the leech I have lain here beside the swamp like a fisherman, and already my outstretched arm has been bitten 10 times. Now a fairer leech bites for my blood, Zarathustra himself. Oh happiness, oh wonder, praised be this day that lured me to this swamp. Praised be the best, liveliest, cupping glass alive today. Praised be the great leech of conscience, Zarathustra." Thus spoke the man who had been trodden on, and Zarathustra rejoiced at his words in their fine, respectful manner. "Who are you?" he asked, and offered his hand. "Between us there is still much to elucidate and clear up, but already, it seems to me, it is bright, broad daylight." "I am the conscientious man of the spirit," answered the other, and scarcely anyone is sterner, stricter, and more severe in things of the spirit than I, apart from him from whom I learned, Zarathustra himself. Better to know nothing than half know many things. Better to be a fool on one's own account than a wise man at the approval of others. I go to the root of things. What matter if it be great or small, if it be swamp or sky? A hand's breadth of ground is enough for me, if only it be thoroughly firm ground. A hand's breadth of ground, one can stand upon that. In truly conscientious knowledge there is nothing great and nothing small. So perhaps you are an expert on the leech, asked Zarathustra, and do you probe the leech down to its ultimate roots, conscientious man? Oh, Zarathustra, answered the man who was trodden on, that would be a colossal tank. How could I undertake it? What I am master of and expert on is the leech's brain. That is my world. And that too is a world, but forgive me that my pride here speaks out, for here I have not my equal. That is why I said, here I am at home. How long have I probed this one thing, the brain of the leech, so that slippery truth should here no longer slip away from me? Here is my kingdom. For its sake I have cast away all others, for its sake I have grown indifferent to all others, and close beside my knowledge couches my black ignorance. The conscience of my spirit demands of me that I know one thing, and apart from that know nothing. I am disgusted by all the semi-intellectual, all the vaporous, hovering, visionary. Where my honesty ceases, I am blind and want to be blind. But where I want to know, I also want to be honest. That is severe, stern, strict, cruel, inexorable. Because you, O Zarathustra, once said, spirit is the life that itself cuts into life. That led and seduced me to your teachings, and truly with my own blood have I increased my own knowledge. As the evidence indicates, Zarathustra interposed, for blood continued to run down the naked arm of the man of conscience, for 10 leeches had bitten into it. Oh, you strange fellow, how much this evidence tells me, for it tells me about yourself, and perhaps I could not pour all of it into your stern ears. Very well, let us part here, but I should like to meet you again. Up yonder leads the way to my cave. Tonight you shall there be my welcome guest. And I should also like to make amends to your body for treading upon it. I shall think about that, but now a cry of distress calls me hurriedly away from here, from you. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Interesting section we do have here. We have the conscientious man of the spirit. So what does it mean to be conscientious? That is one, I should say, of the big 5 of psychology. You have openness, conscientiousness, extrovertedness, agreeableness, and of course the one so pervasive into our current society, neurosis or neurotic or narcissistic. So conscientiousness is you could say, thinking of the exterior world to your own ego, your own self, the understanding of the situation that you're in with your environment, and the ability to plan accordingly, plan for the future. You are conscientious of the things you want to do, the plans and actions you must create in order to achieve the things you want to do. So here we have the conscientious man of the spirit. Quite fascinating indeed. He is in a swamp, and his arm is in the swamp, and he is letting the leeches bite his arm so he can better understand their brain. The leech is a creature that is a parasite, or parasitical maybe. It sustains itself on the life force of another. So what kind of metaphor is this leech, as it's sucking the life force out of the conscientious man of the spirit? Maybe it's impulsivity, the draining of the ability to be conscientious. He even goes as far to call Zarathustra himself a leech, the greatest leech. And that's quite interesting, is it not? I like some of the quotes here on the third page. Better to know nothing than half know many things. This is spoken by the conscientious man of the spirit. So it is better to, instead of prostrating yourself and being a jack of all trades, maybe be a master of one. As for me and the archetype that I embody, I am definitely a jack of many trades. I like to participate and learn and explore with my curiosity a lot of different avenues, experiences, and all of the like in life. So I feel personally attacked here, Mr. Conscientious Man. And then he goes on to say that better to be a fool of one's own accord than a wise man at the approval of others. This is something that Nietzsche himself embodies in later books, where he let me try and see if I can recall the quote exactly here. That's right. It is better to be, to him you have failed if you are only surrounded by people that echo the same ideas that you echo. And you could say that this is the creation of the echo chambers, to not have anybody that has a different or opposing, I should say more appropriately, opposing view to your own. And that kind of leaves you in this illusion, right? The illusion of truth, because you believe yourself, based on your own biases and whatnot, and your own ideas, that the way that you are thinking is the correct way. And that gets reaffirmed by the people you keep around you, by whether it's active or not active. What I mean by that is, if the people around you that you're keeping company with, some people do it, they actively sought out to find people that are like them. I mean, who doesn't like people that are like you, right? That's almost quite a narcissistic trait there. You're finding the mirrored version of yourself. You're finding people with the same characteristics, same ideology, and that's very problematic to Nietzsche. That's very problematic for science in general, because in science, the ultimate goal really should be to disprove your own ideas. You really should want to, because if you are your harshest critic, or your idea's harshest critic, and then it's still proven to be true, then that speaks monumental volumes about the absolute strength of the foundation of the ideas that you posit into the world, as opposed to the opposite, which is quite awful, I would say, which is that you don't test your theories. I would say that is not a true scientist, one who does not test their theories or have them tested. Remembering to be detached, remembering that your ego is detached from your ideas. Just because you house some of these ideas does not mean that you should become possessed by these ideas. That's ideological possession. That's when you, well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You get possessed by ideas, get possessed by some demons up in here. So what else happens in this glorious section here of Zarathustra wandering, still on his way to find the Übermensch, of course. This is another character that he comes across, and there are several more before he finally returns to his cave. So here is the conscientious man of the spirit he has come across in the swamp. Again, the man who was found to be actively searching for leeches in the swamp, to understand them better, to understand their brain better. who was trodden on by Zarathustra and was quite upset about it. Not gonna lie, he's got some petty remarks about Zarathustra, saying that how could you come upon this dog lying in the sun? Of all the room you had to not hit me, you hit me, something like that. I'm gonna see if I can pull up any more from the end of this section here. The conscience of my spirit demands of me that I know one thing, and apart from that know nothing. I am disgusted by all the semi-intellectual, all the vaporous, hovering visionary. So I am also doing a reading of The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche's critique of, or at least Nietzsche's posited idea that Socrates was actually Socrates in his rational venture into the harsh critique of the Greek culture of the time actually started this kind of descent of society. And so that is mirrored in this part right here, where he says, what he's pretty much saying is visionary, vaporous, semi-intellectual, especially words like visionary, you can kind of pull, at least for me, sort of like the person who is too metaphysical, too abstract, too detached from reality, you could say. This is Zarathustra's position. He is way more into the god of wine, Dionysus, the man who is in tune with his, if you couldn't tell, instincts. If you couldn't tell, Zarathustra really, Friedrich Nietzsche really thinks that life is not as complicated as we make it out to seem. In The Birth of Tragedy, he actually says that despite Socrates' attempt to be this knowledgeable man who has all the answers, he says it's futile because inevitably we are three-dimensional. He doesn't say this right now, but what I'm saying right now, which is that we're three-dimensional beings contained to the third dimension. We have the only capabilities of understanding the world I think people forget are through our senses, through our sight, through our touch, through our hearing, feeling, taste, all of the senses, which primarily rely on physical contact with the world. And some would argue, a lot of people would argue that there's much more that's incomprehensible to the human mind. Incomprehensible scientifically, I should say, because it's possible to abstractly understand these ideas, but in the end of the day, to really be able to, we're never really going to be able to grasp these ideas other than in the form of mythological storytelling or other forms of abstract communication about that. But anyways, back to the point here, which is that he is saying that he is not a fan of the Apollonian, the man who, the semi-intellectual, the pseudo-intellectual who goes around and tries to acquire, who says that knowledge is virtuous and the happy man is a virtuous man, stating that you should just be on a quest for infinite knowledge, despite how anti-pragmatic that might be. This man interests Zarathustra, this conscientious man of the spirit. He interests him so much he welcomes him back to his cave and wants to treat him and tend to him and wants to know more about him, as we all do. This is a striking figure. I would like to open the discussion up as well. I know this is it's not like you can input right now into anything because this video is already posted and recorded and everything, but I'm curious to see my counterpart's perspective and all of you brave, dense thinkers out there perspective on this conscientious man of the spirit. What does he mean to you? What is he doing? What is his mission in being in the swamp, laying his arm in the water and allowing leeches to bite him, drain his blood? And just for the sake of understanding the leech. What is the leech of the conscientious man that is taking the life force away, you could say? And so that's the short reading for today. I hope you enjoyed this lovely short podcast. Short of 20 minutes, And I will see you and listen on another day. Enjoy self-love. Sunday, and I will leave you with a quote, which is, self-care is a divine responsibility. Goodbye, everybody.